Ross,
Yes.
I say like we can officially, cameras are rolling. We kind of been chopping up a little bit.
Yes.
I want to get your take post ride on how you feel. Because you haven't ridden a bike in years, you said since like high school.
Yeah, probably. I mean, actively ridden a bike for sure since high school.
And have you done like any mountain biking before?
No, yeah. So, I mean, my most familiarity with mountain biking is everything that you've told me for the last couple of years of all of your stories. Yeah, otherwise, like, I know I've never actually been mountain biking. I never even when I was younger, I never really, other than like a casual, like, oh, we're going in this like little random trail in the woods, sort of, but like nothing that was like, oh, here's an appropriate and actual like trip and going on a trail and going on an actual ride. Yeah, so it has been a minute.
So we did a relatively simple trail.
So you say.
I think I like it because it's a very good beginner. Like they literally call it the beginner loop.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have all the features that you would see on like any trail here in Ohio, at a very, basic level. So like
Right.
if you go to any of the other trails, you're going to see a lot of that, but you're climbing like 20 feet or, they're much steeper climbs and descents. So I think it's a good introductory because like if you seem to like that, then I think you'll like some of the other trails that are out there. So
Yeah.
kind of like, what do you think of it? What did you think of it?
So, I mean, that was a blast. It really was. Went by way quicker than what I know you said you were like, oh yeah, it'll be, it won't be like that long. And I was like, all right, yeah, cool. And then like, I feel like we just buzzed through that. I feel like we rode for like 4 minutes.
Yeah, it felt like it was 10, 15
yeah,
minutes. I
literally
think it really was about like a 20-minute ride.
Right. I will say, hardest part is when I swallowed that bug. That made it the most difficult because then for like the whole last half, I'm just like choking every like 3 minutes or something. Yeah, no, super fun. And I will say I was surprised it was slightly more difficult at times than what I thought it was going to be. Like not like amazingly difficult where I'm like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
But like there were certain sections where I was like, I made it through that, but I'm also like, that was like a little bit more difficult than what I thought. Because I was trying to keep in mind, like the pedal thing that you said of like, all right, because like I feel like my natural instinct is to like, when I'm standing up on a bike, is to do the whole like one leg straight, one leg up sort of thing. So like I was trying to keep those, I was trying to keep those things in mind of like keeping it balanced. And I think I remember telling you this when we were out there. I was like, I keep catching myself like, I'm like trying to take in the scenery, but also need to pay attention to like what I'm doing on the trail. And yeah, it was interesting because I feel like I was trying to take it really slow because I'm like, all right, don't overdo it. Like, don't like, even though like, hey, cool, you can ride a bike. Like, you're going to think you can ride a bike and then one route pops up and you're like done for.
Yeah.
But for me, I definitely was like trying to find that balance of like getting a nice coasting speed, but also I kept finding myself doing the classic like, ooh, like going slow enough to where you're like trying to get the bike, you know what I mean? Like keep it going and like switching back and forth. But yeah, like it was slightly more difficult to get back on a bike and get out on a trail like that than what I thought it was going to be, but not in like a bad way.
Yeah.
It was like a cool challenge way where I was like, this is just simple enough, but just challenging enough to where, because it's something new. Like I've never really, I've been on some casual trails years ago, but never really did it like that. So yeah, I think it was like a nice balance of like, that was super fun. And also like just enough of a challenge where I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like we are getting out of our comfort zone a little bit. Like,
yeah, for sure. And I'll be the first to tell you that swallowing a bug, that is like, you're officially like,
I did it.
Like an outdoors guy. Cause like, yeah,
I'm basically, I'm an outdoorsman.
like
now.
that's the worst thing when you're like in the middle of like, that's happened to me where you're like in the middle of like a Rudy section or whatever, where you can't really just like stop or like slow down and you're like hacking, trying to hack up, trying to.
That is literally what,
So that's
That is
cool.
what I was
I'm
experiencing.
glad you enjoyed it. I think it's I don't know. I feel like there's two camps of people. People who are, enjoy it after the first time, or they just fucking hate it. And they're like, yeah, I'm never doing this again. And
Interesting.
I have a question for you. Can you see yourself doing something like this again?
I think so, because I feel like this is one of those like hobby things that would be nice to do like every couple weeks or something. It's like, all right, cool, I'm going to take a Sunday or I'm going to take a Saturday or whatever day realistically. And cool, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to like keep learning, obviously, like learn the trails and, you know, all this sort of stuff. But it's like, this is like the most, and I know it's like, obviously, like, you know, the point of the show is like, you know, getting people out of their comfort zones, trying something new, or just like leaning into a hobby that they already love. But for me, it's like, it is such an interesting thing that I am like, yeah, that would be fun to like casually continue doing, is because it is like, cool, this is the most probably unique part of my week. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not like the highlight, like there's nothing else going on, but like this is like the most like different thing that I've done all week or all month or whatever it may be, that it's like, oh yeah, cool. Like, well, that unique add to your week can then become kind of like a more consistent unique add to your, like another layer of, I mean, I told you when we were on the trail, I was like, this like feels a little bit like a workout. Like I definitely was like feeling it like in my arms and my legs, and I'm like, okay. And that's from somebody who like, I go to the gym, you know, usually 5 days a week. And so it's like this for me, it's like not only the fun, the unique adventure of it, the casual, like, hey, we're getting outdoors and we're experiencing something new, but also it is like kind of like another layer of like a different type of fitness as well.
Oh, yeah,
like
absolutely.
You're still active in a way, and you're like, I mean, having to like steady a bike over roots and rocks, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm like using some muscles to do this. Like
it definitely is a full body workout. And
100%.
And that's one of the things that what I enjoy the most out of it is the fact that you get your cardio in and you have a full body workout, because you're literally pushing, you're moving your whole body. You're positioning yourself over, you know, different obstacles, and, you know, obviously trying to stay upright. And then, you know, you get into some areas where you're, you know, have a punchy climb and you're like doing all of that, but like while also, you know, on an incline.
Oh, yeah. So I feel like so much of mine, again, was like me. You're going to look back at some of the GoPro footage and just see me like, it's like I got it, but I'm still gonna be like and like I feel like that's where most of my workout came from. It's like not letting the bike just like tip over and me just like fall into the rocks.
Yeah, you definitely build a lot of core stability from like cycling.
Yeah, I definitely feel like this for me would have felt like a different experience if I wasn't already actively in the gym.
Yeah,
for sure. I feel like I would have felt it a lot more where I was like, oh man, like okay. Otherwise, like that felt like a nice like different type of a workout, or a different layer of what my like weekly routine would be, where I can definitely tell though, like if I wasn't super active with that, because like not being active in biking or not being active in like the gym or anything else, like, you know, physical activity, I would have came in here and been like, okay, like that felt really good, but that was definitely like a lot of work. Like,
yeah, I remember when I first rode this trail and got introduced to like cycling and mountain biking. It'd been years since I do any really like real physical activity. And like, no joke, even like after that first time we rode, you know, the little 2-mile loop, I was sore for the next few days, because it was like not only like the first time like getting a lot of physical activity, but then doing something that's like it is physically demanding. Like I don't know, like I feel like maybe I might, you know, I say it's kind of like easy, quick trail or whatever, like might take it for granted, but like even like looking back at how I felt the very first time I did it, I'm like, oh, this is like, it's pretty demanding.
Yeah, no. And again, like that's why I say that like I feel like stuff like this is a fun challenge. Like it is the idea of like, all right, get out of your comfort zone. Cause like, yes, I can sit and be like, oh, I can ride a bike. Again, that's a cliche saying of like, oh, it's just like riding a bike. Well, you usually, you can just hop back on a bike. You got it. You're good. But adding that dynamic of like being in an environment that you've never been in, it's a new trail, there's new obstacles and all that sort of stuff. Like there is that added dynamic of like learning all of that sort of stuff. And so again, like I think that like, I don't know, that's what made it so cool to me, is like it does feel like, I don't know, like it is just like casual, like, hey, we're riding a bike through some trails in the woods, but it feels like enough of that unique add-on of like, whether it is like a physical challenge, whether it is just like the actual like mental release of just like, hey, I'm doing something different in my week, I'm changing up my routine, I'm just like taking in a new environment. Like all of those layers make this something that's like, I don't know, it was cool to experience. And I see why people like yourself are like, hey, I love riding all the time now. And like,
it's 100% it is that for me. And it's an outlet to kind of get out of like my regular day-to-day, you know, work, home, family, all of that. And then also it's physically demanding. So it's like, obviously you can speak to that yourself as well. It's like, like you're consistently working out, you're at the gym. Cycling and mountain biking that's how I get my workout in, and that's how I kind of relieve my stress. Even going like, to be honest, like even going out on a trail, like there's so much going on that sometimes like it's cool just to kind of like break that pattern of like your everyday routine, that you're just focused on the trail out in front of you, the obstacles that are in front of you, trying to stay upright. Like you don't have time to really think about anything else. So that's one of the things that I enjoy the most out of it, that it just kind of, I don't know, just kind of recalibrates my brain into like, oh, hey, like you kind of shut everything else out and you're just focusing out what's in front of you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like obviously like that's the idea of the show, right? Like that's like getting past the creative block. And that's what's cool is that I feel like I have heard all that from you since you started going out on the trails, biking, all that sort of stuff. Like that is like, regardless of like what you were working on or what ideas you were trying to make or whatever, so often when we would talk and we would catch up and all this sort of stuff, your main stories would be like, oh man, when I was out like riding the other day, when we went to this new trail, we experienced this new place or whatever. And like that I feel like is the hidden benefit of things like this. It's not just like, oh, I don't have time to go mountain bike, or I don't have time to go to the gym, or I don't have to, it's like those sort of things I actually do think help you get past those creative block. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you can sit and you're in the same routine, the same cycle over and over, like sometimes you got to break out of like the normal routine, your normal system that you effectively like create for yourself. And it's like doing things like this. Like, again, I've seen that firsthand with you where you're like, this added like a whole new dynamic to your life of like, yeah, like this is like, it not only like, am I putting energy into it, but like, I'm getting energy from it. And I feel like that has like helped you balance yourself in so many different ways. Like having this as like your constant, I feel like it's like made like for a lot, I don't know, just even like as somebody who talks to you about tons of things, like this has been like such a very like positive, consistent thing for you. And so I think like that's obviously the important thing of like finding anything like that. Like for me, it's been going to the CrossFit gym. Like that has been like the, it's not going to like solve the problems or make everything go away or something. But like you were saying, it's like you get to kind of just like zone out of whatever else, what other noise is going on around you, whether it is like having a creative block of like, oh, I can't get this project done. I can't get this idea figured out. I can't get this like whatever career endeavor, life endeavor, whatever. And I think when you remove those normal things and you get to do something like this, you break out of the norm, whatever your norm is. And like, I don't know, I think that's the cool thing to all this. And again, I feel like I've seen that firsthand with you, and obviously experiencing it myself, but our own experiences are one thing, but seeing it in other people, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of benefit of doing something that's slightly out of your comfort zone, adding something new to your routine. And then when it does become that consistent, constant thing, well, now you have a constant flow of like what effectively is like positive energy to yourself. Like 100%. If you're having a bad week and then you know that you get to go ride that weekend, like, yeah, like everything else that week might be weird or not fun, but you get to kind of like push all that out of the way for a little bit and then just like hit the trail, whatever it is, and then like get something that just benefits you. And I think the cooler thing is like there's not ulterior motives isn't the right phrase, but there's no like larger result that doing stuff like this is tied to.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I'm sure, yes, people come out and ride bikes and they want to be like the best and they're competitive and all that sort of stuff, of course. But if that's their goal, then that's their goal and they're clear on that. But like, I think when it is somebody who's like, whether you're trying to break out of like the normal cycle of life or a creative cycle of life, because you know as well as I do, like us freelance creative entrepreneur people, like we do this stuff to not have a normal job, but then we effectively create a harder job for ourselves. Like, I don't want to work 9 to 5, 40 hours a week. Instead, I want to work 24/7, 100 hours a week. Like, so it's like, I think creatives are usually like relatively bad at finding things like this for themselves. Yeah. Of having like
hobbies.
Yes, literally just having hobbies. I mean, I'm super guilty of like, I turn all of my hobbies into careers, which is not the worst thing that can happen, but there's not just something of like, again, the last time I've ever done something like this, like, yes, we're creating a podcast and we're like making something of it that matters and it's fun, but we also just got to like ride a trail and I got to do something that I haven't done in years, if not technically ever. And I think that like not having like when you're doing something like the gym or biking or whatever your hobby is that's outside of your career or your normal life, like that thing isn't necessarily tied to an end result that you have to have.
Yeah.
Like, does that make sense? Like, when you're coming out and biking, you are like, yes, you want to get better and you want to like, you're engulfed in the culture, but you're not doing it to be like, I have to be the best cyclist at the end of the day today.
Absolutely not.
You're doing it to remove all of that stuff. And I think that, like, that's a vastly important thing to have. And something that, like, I have, like, I would say almost like maybe 50-50 okay at over the last handful of years. Because, like, I recognize that, like I said, I turn all my hobbies into career things just because when I really get involved in something and I love it, I'm like, what's the most I can do with this? But like we were just talking about, like, there doesn't always have to be some large end result tied to the thing you're doing. It's like, oh, I do this because of this. It's like, well, I do this just because I enjoy it.
Yeah, and then that's where, like, you know, honestly, like, I give like all the credit to you that even that we are having this conversation right here, that we just did a ride. I give all that credit to you because, like, while yes, this is a hobby and you can make a career out of it, like, you know, one of the conversations we had recently was I wanted to, you know, kind of restart the podcast, continue it on. I don't want to say that I quit the podcast. I was kind of like on a indefinite hiatus, I guess. And, you know, in talking to you about, you know, some of the ideas that I want to, some of the reasons behind, you know, maybe why I haven't made as many episodes. And I think part of it was because they started becoming a lot like work. And, like, not that I didn't like it or I didn't enjoy having conversations with people, but just the fact, like, I spent 100 hours this week working, doing creative stuff, booking shoots, going to shoots, prepping, charging, editing, doing all of that.
Yep. That
I'm like, oh shit, now I have to come and like record a podcast, I have to book a guest, and talking to you, you know, you're like, you're always talking about like cycling, like why not, you know, we just kind of threw that idea out there of like, what about incorporating things, something that you enjoy doing, and it really ties into like the reason why I even started the podcast to begin with was, you know, during that time when I first started, was going through kind of a creative block and a kind of challenging time in my career path where I didn't really I was kind of torn between what I wanted to do, whether it be like more freelancing, try to be, you know, take the more entrepreneurial route and kind of, you know, finding clients, doing all the editing, doing all of that. And I don't know, I was just kind of unsure what I wanted to do. And, you know, talking to people like you, to Josh, to other creatives, it gave me a lot of perspective and it kind of gave me a lot of direction. I was like, oh, I want to be able to have these conversations with people on camera, on, you know, with microphones. And that was the original intent behind the Creative Block podcast. And kind of ended up getting away from that in a way. I mean, life and all these other things that happen, and it's totally normal. But now I think really give you, I'm extremely grateful to like just have you as a friend and as kind of like somebody that can, a creative genius that I know. And like, it's funny because like I said that to Josh the other day where like Ross comes up with some fucking like awesome ass ideas, which, and it's like, you know, it's cool because it's kind of unique to me. And like, even like the whole cycling thing is, you know, I want to be able to share that joy that I found with cycling and doing something more challenging.
Yep.
I want to be able to share that with somebody. And that's, I think like the biggest takeaway for me is being able to share that. And especially when people, oh, wow, that was awesome. Or I like it. Or, hey, like, what do I need? You know, what, send me some links to bikes or whatever, because maybe I want to try this out now or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So that aspect of it is awesome. But I feel that it could also be a catalyst to other creatives or other people that are listening on, you know, trying to identify like, what is that thing, whether it's hobby, physical recreational thing that you do that's outside of like the creative work or the any type of work that you do, or that, you know, out of that everyday routine or cycle, being able to help identify that. And I think that's what I want to continue doing, and that was original intent, and I feel like I can continue doing that now. But now I get to like also ride bikes and introduce people to like the whole world of bikes too, which is
right, and
fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing is like, you and I just got to do something, and I got to experience something that I've heard you talk about for the last like 2 or 3, whatever amount of years it's been, right? So it's like, that's a cool thing. Like, we just spent our day today, or at least, the first half of our day today, riding, and you get to show me, the way around a bike and how to like properly ride, and how these small techniques and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, that is the cool benefit. It's like, all right, cool. Now you're getting to share those things, and like, yes. And then cool, we get to have like a fun little conversation, and we get to hang out and all that sort of stuff. But like you were saying, like, that is the like, it's like I feel like the reason, that idea even pops up or whatever is because it's like, yeah, it's like there's a difference between like doing creative things that we feel like we want to do or need to do or supposed to do or whatever, but also figuring out like what actually brings us fulfillment, and like what actually narrows down that like actual like energy giving thing, right? And it's not just, sometimes I think it's like easy to like, when you start down a venture of like, I'm gonna be creative, or I'm gonna start a podcast, or I'm gonna do this thing, you're sort of just like doing it as it's like surface level of like, oh, I'm doing the thing, so it must mean that I like it, I just have to keep going. When it's like, well, you have to figure out, no matter what you're doing, what is that actual like level of fulfillment that it's giving you? Or are you just doing it because you want to feel creative, and it's like there's a part of it that's fun, but you don't necessarily know why it's fun? And I feel like that's like some of the conversations we were having of like, I want to do this and it's so much fun, but it's not really bringing me like fulfillment of something. You know what I mean? It's not really like giving me energy. Like you said, it started to feel like work. And so it's like something like this. It's like, all right, cool, but like what core, and I think that, again, this happens, like, it doesn't matter if somebody's starting a podcast or not, like literally any endeavor they're doing, it's like, figure out what that core piece of you is inside of like, it's the cliche, like figuring out the why.
Yeah.
What's my why? And not like purpose in the world, but like, why do I do this stuff? Like, why do I want to do this? And it's like, all right, well, I want to connect with people. It's like, all right, well, how do I connect with people? I sit with them and talk with them. And it's like, all right, well, to do that, you got to have energy, and you got to like be fulfilled from that conversation. And there needs to be like an ultimate purpose for it, not of like fame or money or whatever, but like the purpose is like a genuine connection. And if you feel like you're not getting that energy or getting that genuine connection from the thing you're doing, all right, well, cool. That means it's not actually tied to like our actual why. And I'm not saying your why is like cycling or biking or podcasting or something, but like the why can be sharing experience with people. The why can be having good conversations with people, and then also getting to bridge that gap between like, hey, here's something from my world that's super important to me, and how can I introduce you to it? And now, like, cool, now we've each both had like a new experience, and then cool, we record it for a podcast, and then it becomes a fun little show that we then get to share with everybody else. Yeah. And maybe somebody who listens to this or watches it or whatever, they hear one of us or whoever the other guest is sitting and talking about fulfillment or getting past that creative block or whatever. And then guess what? That then bridges another gap for that person who you might not even know. And it's like, that connection is what's like even more important, or the cooler part, than just being like, oh yeah, I do a podcast about my friends and creative people and cycling and, whatever. I think like that is like, I don't know, that is like the ultimate thing, is like uncovering that why and what actually fulfills you in things. And so, yeah, it's like, that's where that idea comes from. And that's why that idea even popped up, is like, well, hey, like I hear you talk about all the things that really give you energy and fulfill you. So what if that was the core piece that you built something off of? Not that the other stuff didn't, but I think it serves you in a different purpose. Yeah. It serves you in a different way that just isn't as energizing. So it's like, okay, cool. How do you blend the coolest parts of this thing over here and the coolest parts of this thing over here, and then make something new out of that is far more fulfilling than maybe like a little bit that this one was and a little bit that one was? Like bridging that gap and finding out, like, again, what actually brings you fulfillment. Like,
how do you identify that with what you do? Because you are someone who I see as extremely creative, right? Like, yes, we know that you have like all these cool ideas, but you really are like super talented in the fact that you have been able to take all of these like little different areas that you enjoy or like to do, and you produce all these different types of podcasts. You have all these cool short films. You come up with great ideas for like music videos, for for creative stuff, and like how do you kind of navigate the fulfillment and everything that you do, and being able to have like very I don't know, to me, what it feels like, very authentic, like little arms to who you are.
Yeah. For me, it literally is like kind of what we just talked about. Like I feel like I understand my why. And that why is both like what I want to give and what I want to receive. And it's like, for me, like my two main things are like connecting with people and storytelling. Those are my two things. And those are very like general, vague, like kind of broad things. But like when I can look at an idea and be like, does this come from the root of my why? Like, then if the answer is, well, yeah, it actually kind of does. And okay, that means it's going to bring me fulfillment. It means it's going to give me energy. So then why would I deny myself of that? Right? Because I feel like for years when I was like navigating freelance and entrepreneurship and creative world, like I was just trying to figure it out, like a lot of us have to, right? That's like the normal thing. But it was more about like the chase of like, oh my gosh, I need clients. Oh my gosh, I need other people to think that like something I'm doing is cool so they can hire me, or I need them to pay me well or whatever. And it's like, after a while, I realized like a lot of that was just like, wait, I am using all of my creative energy and any bit of my why just for other people. And inherently that's not bad if it's being used in a good form.
Right.
You know, if connecting with people is your why and you're helping other people, then of course that's a good thing. But like when you do, like when that is in a creative endeavor or whatever it is, like, cool, I'm using all of my storytelling energy for client projects. And after years of doing that, I'm like, why do I hate doing this? Well, it's because, well, effectively I had that like a blockade up of like, well, you're doing the thing, but in a version that doesn't actually fulfill you. You're not actually fulfilling that why of yours. You're just sort of doing the thing. Like we were talking about earlier, we effectively create our own systems that we were trying to get out of. And that's what I did. And so like once I uncovered, and maybe that's like a really vague answer, but like once I uncovered what I actually want to be doing and why, and when I say what I'm be doing, I don't mean video directing. I don't mean podcasting. I mean connecting with people, storytelling, like those big things. I'm like, okay, cool, that's the root. Now I'm way more comfortable growing all of those branches off of that. Because like, I will also say for as many, I have a handful of podcasts now on a podcast network and love helping, develop, your show or other people's shows and like giving people those ideas and helping them build them. I love doing all of that. But at the same time, there's also other ideas that have been either presented to me or that I've thought of that I've told myself no on. So it's not even just like I'm so creatively free that I just frolic through the field and, because sometimes I think people view creativity like that, right? Yeah. Like there's no strategy, there's no plan. I've probably told myself no on more ideas than I tell myself yes on. Not in a negative way though. I do it to preserve my energy and my time because I'm like, that idea sounds cool. But what's really like the purpose of it? What's the intention? What is its why? And is it really going to bring me fulfillment, or is it going to be something that'll be like fun to say I do a little bit, but then something's always fun at first. And then when the consistency, the maintenance part comes in, which is what I kind of feel like you ran into with version 1 of this show, right? It's like, it was fun at first. And at some point it was like the maintenance to keep up with this is actually way more work and I'm not really getting energized out of it. So it's like, I say all that to say like, I've told myself no on plenty of ideas because I can always identify that why, that root cause of why I do the things I do. And, that is a conversation that I have a lot of times with a lot of people. They're like, Ross, like, I don't understand. Like, why do you do so many different things? Like, I don't get it almost. Like, cool, but like, I'm confused. And it's because I know what brings me fulfillment and what doesn't. So it's like, I make better space, and I think we can all make greater space for like, you can probably do 5 different things that are fun or enjoyable or career endeavors or whatever, if you understand why you want to do them and how they energize you. And like the more you do that and the more that you say no to things that do not bring you that fulfillment or that energizing, that energy in general, that of course brings more room, that brings more space for those things. So you're able to focus more on, oh yeah, I might start a second podcast or a third one or make a podcast network or shoot a short film or pitch this commercial or pitch a client, like whatever it is. Like I think when we learn to make more space for those things, that's when we can effectively have more of those things. And after years of like literally just kind of working doing the grind and hustle thing, which is like we all sometimes that sometimes comes with the territory.
Yeah.
I'm not going to like demonize that or myself for doing that, but I also at some point learned this isn't good for me because it effectively made me hate being creative. And I was like, no, I know I want to love this thing. So what's this block that's in my way and how can I get around it? And so for me, like going back to your original question, it's like, how do I do all those things? It's like, I know less of like how I'm going to do them, but more of like why I want to do them. And I think that then unlocks the how a lot easier. Like, not to keep rambling, but like just to kind of wrap it up and put a bow on it. It's like, I can sit and like confidently say yes or no to an idea because I have that confidence in myself of knowing whether it's good or bad for me.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, like, how were you able to identify that for yourself? How were you like able to get to that point where you can, oh, this is why this is not fulfilling me and is not, it's sucking my energy. Like, how were you able to identify that was why, you were feeling that way?
One, being vastly burnout. And like seeing that of like, wow, I'm not excited about doing this project. I'm not excited about whatever element it is. And like, wait, this has like been the career that I've been chasing for the last handful of years. Like, I didn't go to college, didn't do any of that stuff, just like left high school and was like, I want creative jobs as my career, as my life. I don't know what those are. I didn't set out to be like, I want to be a video director. I want to be a podcaster. Like that wasn't the thing. I just knew I wanted to be creative. And so when I'm only feeling burnout and annoyance and negativity from doing those things, that was the first identifier where I was like, this isn't cool. Then I think it's like the first step to any problem. That's like everyone says, it's like you have to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge that there's a problem and accept that and say, there's an issue. So then when you acknowledge it, then you can start to like kind of reverse engineer, like, okay, I have this thing and this is the problem. Now, what are my steps to kind of eliminate that problem? And so for me, it was like, as silly as it might sound, it was literally like slowing down and removing myself from that machine that I had effectively created for myself. And it was like, I'm going to start being a little pickier when it comes to projects. I'm going to start being a little pickier of like where I expel my creative energy into. And like, it was like holding myself accountable to slow myself down and really kind of like, I don't think a lot of us are good at this in the moment. Is like, you have to step back and zoom out. Like you have to zoom out. Yeah. Any cliche version of that you've ever heard, like stop and smell the roses. Like that's what that means. You know what I mean? It's like sit and take in your environment, figure out like what's good, what's bad, what's helpful, what's not. And like, that's what it was for me, is like one, the acknowledgement of like, I'm feeling really like burnout and sad and depressed about these things that should be fun for me. So it was like the acknowledgement, but then it's like the most important step to anything, whether it's positive or negative and you want to make a change, is like, it's the action part. You have to put the action in. So I was like, okay, if I want to make these changes, if I want to do this, I need to take action and do that. And sometimes that action is slowing down.
Yeah.
Like rest is still productive. And so like that, I think, was that phase for me where I was like slowing down and just re-identifying what's energizing to me and what's not, what's fulfilling and what's not. But more so just not complaining about it, of like, this client sucks or this version of a project sucks and I don't want to do music videos anymore or whatever. It wasn't just that. It was identifying those things, but then saying, okay, why? And then that why then becomes, well, what's my why?
Yeah.
And then like, it's literally like a reverse engineering process. And like, I just rambled and said a bunch of like positive stuff, but like, I really don't think it's that complicated. Like, I really, really don't.
And another question for you is, was like working out part of that, you identifying that, or was that just something that kind of came about because you wanted to be healthier or whatever, or how did you come about that?
So that didn't pop up early on in like the making the change phase. Like I was still caught up on like, I just need career wise and creative wise to make a change. And then once I did that, like what like continuously making myself zoom out did was then I was able to then zoom out. Once you're clearing the rubble, you're starting to see kind of the new foundational pieces you can build up, right? And like, for me, I would say probably like 2 years after like I sort of refocus on the creative side of things or the career side of things, that entire time I was like, I don't like the way I look and I don't like how I feel. But that was such a getting out of my comfort zone thing that I was like, I don't know where to start. At least with this creative thing, I can look at it and say, oh, I'll just start saying no to these types of projects, or I'll be more picky in this way, or I'll start making my own short films. That'll fulfill me. But like that secondary side was, okay, let's look at more of myself, like personally. How do I feel personally? How do I, all that sort of stuff. And so that was a huge, like, getting around the figurative creative block for me was like, okay, this is something that's not a part of my normal routine. I wanted it to be like, I would beat myself up literally daily, mentally, of like, just go to the gym, go figure it out, like go on a jog, go on a run. And like for a while I would try that. Like I would, go out on a jog, or I would go on like a multi-mile walk and spend my whole day doing that. And that's better than nothing. But I also was like, there's no like real reason to this. I'm just sort of doing it. And so that way, when I went to bed that night, I was like, you were active today. And yes, I was. I'm not going to beat myself up over that, but it still wasn't what I wanted. I was like, no, I need to be actually active in a gym or in some sort of actual setting. And so for me, like that came a little bit after identifying like the creative changes I wanted to make. But I also knew ultimately the root of that was still the personal changes I needed to make. Because it's the classic thing of like, well, what are you truly happy or not? Because like, and it's not like we wake up one day, make one change, and we're all of a sudden happy. There's always, that's 100% an up and down. Like some days are going to be great, some days are going to be not. But if you can find that consistent flow of things that make you happy and keep filling your cup up, that was a big identifier for me. It was like, all right, cool. I've figured out this creative thing. I feel better about that. But you know what? I don't think that's actually the root of the problem, right? I still was trying to identify my why, and I still was trying to identify like what I really wanted. And well, a part of what I really wanted or needed, and I think we all kind of need, is like, did I actually love myself? Mm-hmm. Did I actually like me? Because like, then everything I'm effectively making, chasing, creating, whatever, well, that's an extension of me. So it's like, if I'm not in a good mood, then what really is the result of this that I'm going to get, right? And so that, like, the fitness part it became a really big part, because like as soon as I started actively going to the gym, then I'm not beating myself up every day over like, you just need to get in better shape. You feel terrible. You look terrible. You need to go to the gym. You need to whatever. Once I started doing that, that negative energy, those negative thoughts, those start to go away. Yeah. And then again, we're clearing more of the rubble. I'm making more space for positive things because I'm not just focused on the negative, because that's what I would do. I was so focused on the fact I wasn't going to the gym, but I was also so afraid to try something new. And then finally, once I got past that blockade, once I got past that roadblock of like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to find my bridge in. What can I do? I'm just going to take the leap and jump. And, the first like 3 weeks I went to the gym, I threw up almost every day because my body was just like, yo, what are we doing? Go back and fucking make some designs, dude. Like, But like once that became more about like, it was a consistent flow, then it became maintenance. And then it became like, oh, this machine is now built and it's becoming well oiled. And now I just got to work on keeping the maintenance up. Just like I did with creative and career and all this sort of stuff over here. It's like, I feel like there's like different buckets of life that we can look at and like understand like sometimes we need to pour a little bit into this one, pour into this one feeds into this one. And like that was what like the hobby of fitness and stuff started doing for me, is like, I wasn't doing it so I could be a bodybuilder or be like the coolest CrossFitter in the world. Like, what, it wasn't any of that. It was like, I want to feel better about me, because ultimately when I feel better about me, I'm going to just feel better about anything that I do. So it's like being a little selfish in that way. That also helps me be selfless to other people, because then I have more capacity and more energy to, if I was in like, and again, things come and go in waves, but if, a while ago when we were talking about, like when you were saying like, I want to restart creative block and I don't know, I would kind of feel like if I was like in a super depressive negative state, there's a good chance that idea wouldn't have popped up, because I wouldn't have had the energy and the space to give to you about that conversation. You know what I mean? Like there probably would have been like us just being like, yeah, man, life's hard, right? Like, and then that was it. And it's like, cool, ranting is good, get stuff off your chest, but what can come from that, right? Like when we look at problems, we have to like try our hardest to think of solutions, not just think about how bad the problem was. And with personal life, that has been like a battle for years for me, of like, I was really good at identifying that there were problems, but I was often scared to take the step to get the solution. And so it's like, once I started uncovering how to do that in creative and career, the next layer was, oh my gosh, okay, maybe I can do this with this whole fitness thing. Maybe I can do this with like just get to the gym and then just maintain it and you're good. And like 100%, just like, you know, biking has been for you and we've talked about it, the gym for me has been that thing where it's like, now it's become a consistent part of my life, obviously, but like at first it was an uncomfortable part. It was getting out of my comfort zone. It was trying something new. It was learning things and how to do things the right way and all this sort of stuff. Being uncomfortable to, at the end of it, be like, nice, that was a really cool challenge. Kind of like today. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we didn't do the craziest thing ever, but like I haven't ridden a bike forever and I haven't ridden these types of trails. And so it's like, all right, I'm going to get a little uncomfortable. I'm going to like, you know, skid around for a second and almost lose it a couple times and be like, oh my God, dude, what are you doing? You can't ride a bike. But it's not about that. It's about at the end of it, I get to sit and be like, damn, I get to hang out with my friend Louise, do something that matters to him. I got to experience it and cool. Now I get to sit and be like, nice. I went out and like rode some trails today and like that was a fun additive to my week and a unique additive to my week and something different and a new challenge I got to experience. And so for me, it's like figuring those things out, like that was huge because it ultimately made me feel better and made me feel more fulfilled when I was checking things off that list of, you know, going to the gym or whatever it is. Like, so that was a huge part of it to me, but it wasn't figured out right at the front. It wasn't like I woke up one day and was like, creatively, I got these problems solved, and then I'm also going to go to the gym. Like, that's, I think, something a lot of us get wrong is like, you know, change isn't like an overnight thing.
Yeah, and 100%. Like it's, and with my experience has been where, you know, similar tune for me, like the whole cycling thing was, at the time I got introduced to it was, just enough a crazy, like weird, different thing from what I was doing at the time that like I welcomed it. I'm like, I was at a point where like I just wanted to do something, try something new.
Exactly.
And it was 2020 when I first started, kind of got into it. So obviously everybody knows what that was like, you know, that summer 2020.
Everybody was like, what else should I try? Like,
well, but like, you know, it's like the whole, you know, like, I don't know, like I was in a different, like mentally, I was in a different place than at that time too, but it was something that like I did. It was weird. It was different enough that I'm like, okay, I'll try it, whatever. I enjoyed it and legit fell in love with it, right? But it's become, for me, an outlet to be able to channel my energy. And like I get a lot of fulfillment, especially now where like I can look back 3 years later that at the progress that I have made, like I would be dead riding 5 miles. And now like riding 5 miles is like a light workout.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it's like, and I still have fun doing it, but it's really for me, it opened a lot of doors in being able to identify like relieving stress, being able to identify like, I don't know, just have different opportunities that I didn't really think otherwise I would have had.
Yeah.
Without, if I didn't get introduced to that or started doing it more consistently, where like, I feel like it's been really cool for me to be able to do a lot of different things to where like, not only with work, but like I'm physically active. I feel a lot better. Like I can tell you on days when I have a hard ride, or even just breaking a sweat a little, even if it's just a little bit, or being able to share that with one of my kids, friends, and like go out and ride. Like I get fulfillment and like it really recalibrates my brain.
100%. Yeah.
To, you know, then I can channel whatever challenge I'm doing, whatever next thing that I have to take care of or I need to focus on. It allows me to do that. And like, it's kind of like this recalibration tool, in a way.
100%. Like that's, I don't know. It's all of those sort of like get out of your comfort zone sayings are cliche because they're super true. Like that's what happens when you get out of your comfort zone and you try something new. Like you're going to be challenged in a different way. You're going to maybe learn a new skill, or you're going to learn maybe something you don't want to do, but that's still valuable information. And it's like, I'm sure one of these times, maybe you'll bring somebody out here for the show and you guys will ride and they're going to sit down and be like, dude, I'm down to do this show, but like, oh my God, that was hard. I don't ever want to do that again. It's like, okay, cool. But you tried it.
Yeah.
You tried it. Just trying things. There's so much value in just letting yourself try something. And so it's like, yeah, imagine if you like looked at biking and you were like, that's something I don't currently do that, so I'm not going to do that. It's like, no, you have to learn to try and open up those new doors. try things that are different for us, get out of our comfort zone. And of course it's difficult. Like there's plenty of things that I want to try that I'm like, ooh, I don't know, like maybe one day I will, you know what I mean? Like it's not an easy, just like light bulb moment decision, but it's like the more that you try those things, the more susceptible you become to trying more things. And then guess what? Like the more stuff that you're trying and the more that you're trying and failing and also succeeding and learning from the ups and the downs and all that sort of stuff, you effectively get, I think, a more like interesting and ultimately more fulfilled life, because then you're like, wow, I've experienced this, I've experienced that, I've experienced this. Like I'm not to like make this episode even longer or go on a side tangent, but like, you know, in the last handful of months, I've become huge on like the idea of a bucket list, and not in like cliche, like movie way of like, I want to go skydiving when I'm 60, but like, no, just like what are things you actually want to do or to try with, like we were talking about earlier, no big ulterior motive. You know what I mean? It's like, it would be, I don't know, fun to go and like, I don't know, somebody could be like, I want to make a meal literally from scratch. I want to like hunt an animal. I want to learn how to like take the meat from it. And then I literally want to like later that night or the next day or whatever, have that meal with everything else I prep with it. Not to become a hunter, not to become like some like chef or something like that, but like just to experience it. Just to say that you did. And I think that like that's the cool thing that like is often overlooked with things like bucket lists or fulfillment or whatever. It's like, just do shit that you think is fun or interesting or that you want to learn, or maybe you don't think it's fun and you have no idea, but that's the thing that makes you interested in it. Yeah. And it's like it literally could be like anything. It can be big of like, I want to start a business, or I want to make a brand that does this, or I want to rebuild a skate park, or I want to do something for my local community. Or it can be down to just like, I just want to get better at cooking. I want to learn how to properly tie a tie. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like those things can be broken down into such small goals that it doesn't have to be these ultimate like, oh, I only have a bucket list when I'm about to die. It's like, no, a bucket list can sort of just be things you want to do in your life. And I think that that ultimately creates a more fulfilling life. Like there's like, if, you know, I sat here with you and shared with you all the things that are on like my bucket list that I've like written down. Some of them you'd be like, what the fuck, dude? Because it's such a simple, random thing. Yeah. But it's something that I've never experienced. So to me, that gives it value. And I don't have to love it even after I experience it. I just want to sit and be like,
I experienced it.
I did it. Yeah. Now I know what that's like.
There's a lot to be said about, yeah, not waiting until the end to experience life and to like do different things.
Or the like, perfect moment that says, hey, it's time to experience it. Because if we're waiting for the perfect moment for something, that's never going to happen.
And like on that note, like I think that's as we start to wrap up, I think that's a good topic to try to wrap up on, because you mentioned it too about taking action, and I think that ties into that as well, right? Where you know the importance of being able to identify bucket lists or these things that you want to achieve or accomplish, as simple or as complex. Being able to identify those is one step, but then also having the will and the taking the actionable step to like make it happen.
Yeah.
And like I really like, I feel like that's the kind of like the theme of this conversation has been that of like, yeah, like it's cool to, it's good to have ideas and want to do these things, but it's also just as important to take action and make them happen. And like, I even think, you know, it kind of has me thinking about like, even with my bucket list or things that I want to be able to accomplish, that it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, like when you talk about goal setting, it doesn't have to be like, oh yeah, I want to be a millionaire. I want to have, you know, 500 Bentleys or whatever, Bugattis and all this other shit. Like being able to identify everything in between that, I don't know, that it's actionable. And like,
it's the specifics. Sorry to interrupt you, but like, it's the specifics. Cause it's like somebody can sit and be like, I want to be a millionaire. Okay, but how?
Yeah.
How do you want to be a millionaire? Well, I'd love more than anything to have my own line of bikes called the Bazangos that are this and that. Okay, that's your goal. The millionaire thing should be a side thing. That should be a thing that comes after that. You know what I mean? It's like the real goal is I want to be a new owner of like a new bike brand and a new line and all this sort of stuff. And then like, because then if you're actually doing something that fulfills you and brings you happiness that you actually care about, well, then the success will probably come secondary to that, or the success becomes the least important thing.
Right.
In the money side of things, like, cool, we all want to be millionaires. We all want to make 6 figures. We all want to whatever. There's always those like monetary goals, and those are fine to have. But you have to look at more of like the why and like the what it really is. And like, that's something I've like learned about like the bucket list thing is like, cool, you can sit and say, I want to be a millionaire or whatever as that example. But it's like, get the specific. How do you want to do that? Because then it gives you something more tangible, more specific to focus on of like, yeah, I want to have my own bike brand. I want to have my own bakery. I want to be the next greatest movie director. And here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to make these type of movie. Like, that's the sort of thing that you have to focus on. Sorry, I interrupted you because it like,
no,
did a whole side quest there.
No. You literally touched on, kind of where I was trying to go with it. And it's like, and something else that popped up is like, you hear a lot about like, it's about the journey and like, I feel like everything that you have said and what you have experienced, and even just looking back at what I have experienced in my life so far, that it really is about the journey, about, to get to that, whatever that goal or that bucket list item or that next, tally that you're trying to check off, because I feel like that's where you end up finding, your why, or like you end up getting that fulfillment that you're kind of like looking for. So
100%.
As we start to wrap up, do you have any closing thoughts, and then kind of plug in, kind of what all you have going on right now? Because I feel like we didn't even talk about like all the different podcasts and all the stuff that you're involved in, but like I feel that it's seeing you being able to achieve all of those things and get them up and running, whether successful or not. Like I see you as someone that takes a lot of effort and makes a lot of effort into taking actionable steps and like making things happen. Like even us right now talking is, kind of driven by an idea that you had. Like, but like, that's a cool idea, but how can we make it executable?
Yeah.
And like, and you really helped me see that, yes, I want to, bring the podcast back, but we were able to identify a different way of going about it, where the end goal is I bring the podcast back, but like now I'm getting more fulfillment out of having these conversations.
100%.
And it's a totally different way, and it's like you end up getting the same thing out of it.
Yeah. I think, I mean, all of that makes sense. And like, I don't know, like, I feel like my last thing that like, I feel like I've learned, one of the things that I've learned that's like stuck with me with all of this is like this like motto of like, a dream written down with a date becomes a goal. That goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. And that plan backed by action is how you make the dream come true. And so it's like being able to break those things down of like, it's holding yourself accountable. It's taking the action. It's like, all right, this dream that I have, okay, I want to get started with step one, not achieve the dream. It's not like, well, I can't just say I want to be a millionaire in a month and then all of a sudden make a plan for it. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. It's like, look at that and figure out when can you take that first step. So give yourself, the date, the deadline of like, I'm going to get started in this way by this time, and that's what I'm going to do. And then cool, now you start breaking that down into, now they're goals rather than just dreams in our head that we're thinking about. Now we have tangible goals. And then of course, how do you achieve any goals? Like, all right, well, let's reverse engineer it and let's look at the steps to achieve that goal. And let's just put the action in to do that. And I feel like that is something I remind myself of all the time ever since I learned that, of just like, okay, like this is why this stuff is more possible. It doesn't mean it's easy. It just means it's possible.
Yeah.
And I feel like become not only confident in myself and my skills, but also confident in my ability to accept when things are difficult, and also know that like I might have a bad time with this. I might be bummed that this is so difficult, but I also understand that I'm able to get through it and I'm able to achieve it, or I'm also able to accept if I don't want it at the same time. And I think that having that balance of like understanding when you really want something or you really don't, that's a whole other thing. I could probably say a billion things that would lead this podcast into 3 hours, and we eventually would be sitting in the middle of this rainstorm that's showing up.
It is starting to rain a little bit.
Yes. But yeah, as far as anything else, I'm at Ross Tyson around the internet now. Podcast network is out there. I'm sure you'll like link stuff in the show notes of this for like direct links of all those sort of things. But yeah, in general, I am like what's fun is like the whole theme of this is like making things happen. And you've already said it 100 times, but like, it is really, really dope to me that this is literally something you and I were sitting a couple weeks ago talking about, of like, what if you did it like this and do it like that? And now we are sitting here officially just filming an episode of this podcast and going on a bike ride. And I'm stoked and also proud of you for putting in the effort to make it happen and actually do it, because we could have just sat there and you'd have been like, that's a really rad idea. And 6 months goes by and you're like,
that's a really rad idea.
It's still a really rad idea. So yeah, I am super stoked to like see it exist, see that you're doing it. And just stoked that I, got to be a part of it and got to come out and experience something different for myself, had a unique add to my week. And yeah, just got to like get out of my own comfort zone and also just like have fun while we did it. So yeah, I cannot thank you enough for, I don't know, just having me on this, and also just like believing in ideas and being open to those ideas and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, dude, this was a blast.
Yeah, man. Thanks for kind of lighting the fire into like making this happen, but like also just being down to like go out on a ride and just have the conversation. Like I think that's I've been having done have a few of these already under my belt. That the best part for me has been the post ride like recap of like, oh, so what was it like? I'm like, totally. Did you like it? Did you like it?
Yeah.
So I appreciate it, man. And thanks for coming on. And until next time, guys. Peace.